What's up, everybody? Today is going to be a little bit of a different authenticity video. It's late. It's 7 o'clock, after 7 o'clock my time. So after I do some minor editing to this and then upload and then YouTube's processing of it, it might actually be like midnight. So hopefully I get this out on Monday, which would be the 11th day. It's going to be the 11th day. It's going to be Monday somewhere, even if it's in California. But so I went out today and I met with somebody that wanted me to do some, they had some slides. If you guys don't know what slides are, because not everybody does, they're these guys, right? So I'm sure you've seen these, like maybe in your grandpa's basement or something, where, you know, the photo is actually on this. It's part of a film development process. You guys probably all know about it, but some might and might not, and that's okay. That's okay. So he needed some help digitizing this. Now, you might have seen one of my things that I did on my Patreon. I shared it over there, a work in progress that I did that was kind of fun. If not, I'll link it in the description. It's over on the free version of my Patreon. The thing with slides is you have a couple different ways you could do this. You could use a scanner, a slide scanner like this guy. This works pretty well, but it's old. It's an old software, and the problem that I have with this is that I just can't use it right now. It's a USB, which is great, but the software that I have, they don't have a digital version, and I don't have a CD-ROM drive. I have one somewhere locked away. I can't find it. So what I did was I ended up, Macgyvering something together. So what I did was I took my iPad and then I laid these, I made a white screen background, maximized the brightness, and you can actually see that on my screen here. And I just laid these down. And so then that way it acted like a light table. The light was coming up through, and then you could actually see the images here. So what I'm doing, and I just wanted to I wanted you to kind of go through the process with me. This is kind of like a create with me kind of thing, or rather like a restore with me for photo restoration. It's something that I really like to do. It's near and dear to my heart, with taking photos that might not ever see the light of day. They might be important. It's an archival purpose for saving family history. And in this case, this isn't even his family. These are just some old slides that he got through. I don't quite remember where he got them through, but these are important to somebody. And just the fact that these are history. These are probably based off of, this isn't his, this is mine. I have a bucket of slides here that are ones that I'm in the process of, like, those are kind of very important to me. So for 124, I'm scanning some of these in because I need to build my about page, and what is 124 about, and kind of the history of it, because the 124 is the address, and that was there's a lot of details, and I have to do a video on that because there's so much. But anyway, more good stuff coming later, but I don't want to get off the rails here. But this was a process that I wanted to share because, one, it's something that almost everybody can do. Even if you had an iPhone or just a phone, you can scan these in. You don't need any special equipment. They have different lenses that you can mount, or adapters to your lenses that you can put on your DSLR or your mirrorless camera, but you don't even need that. What you could do is, if you have an iPad and set it up like what I have here, or you could even take your phone and do the same thing and then just make it a nice bright screen and then just put that on. I mean, I could fit 1, 2, 3 onto my phone, but you could even do it one at a time. So it's, if you had your phone and then maybe another camera to look down and take the photos, there are a few things that you want to do. And I'll do a little video if you guys are interested in the process of how to do this. There's some best practices to do. And so what you'll see here is I have 8 photos. This one here Let me just make sure this is still recording. Yeah, it is. Okay. So this one here, I've already done some stuff too, but if I was gonna go back here and just hit reset, you'll see that it's that guy there. Okay. Oops. So let's go back over. What I did is if I uncheck all of them, you'll see this guy here, this one here is the full image. So what I did was I put the 8 images onto my iPad, and then I just threw on a nice bright white background, and then I went through and I centered the photo that I wanted to take. I centered the slide that I wanted to focus on. And the reason for that is I took my lens. These are some of the best practices. You want to make sure that you have as little barrel distortion as possible. And the barrel distortion is something that happens with your camera, or your lens rather. So I'm sure you've seen it where maybe you're taking a selfie of yourself, and if you're real close, you're going to end up, your nose is going to look huge compared to like actually how your face looks. If you hold it further back, then you'll look more normal. And the reason for that is because of the barrel distortion. It's a wide angle lens. So I used this lens right here. It's my 24-70, and it's as you zoom in. So if I get closer to like the 70 millimeter, the further out, the less barrel distortion you have, because when you have a wider angle lens, so like the 24 millimeter, if I was to stay at that 24 millimeter, you're going to end up getting some of that barrel distortion because it's a wider angle lens. You do a 16 mil and you get like, I love the 16 mil. Usually I shoot myself with the 16 mil. And so you'll end up seeing like some distortion a lot of times. Anyway, it's neither here nor there. But what you want to do is try to zoom it in as much as you can for a couple reasons. One, you want to have the highest resolution image that you can have. And you don't want to have to digitally zoom. You don't want to have to crop in too much. So that's going to give you the highest quality that you can have. You also want to make this as flat, as parallel to the slide as possible. So in this case, I have a tripod right here that, well, I don't want to unlock it, but so this has a tripod. This is a standard tripod. Well, it's not a standard tripod, but this is a tripod that I can either go straight up and down, or it has an adjustment screw on it so that I can take this guy, I can take the rod out, and then I can make it go at 90 degrees or any variation thereof. But I can have it go 90 degrees. And then when it's at 90 degrees, I can tilt it and turn it. So if, let's see. Let's say that this was the camera and it was out like this. I could have it go like this. And so this is the lens here, and I could have it go facing different directions. It's very important that you have it go as flat, as straight as possible. So you could even take a level if you want to your camera. I'll do a video. If you guys are interested, I'll do a video on kind of like a quick how-to. So the reason why that's also important, it's not the end of the world. But if you can get these images at a 90-degree parallel, so if you can just get them completely parallel, then you're not going to have as much distortion from the lens, and you're also not going to have any skewing. So if this was at kind of like a little bit of an angle, the top is going to be slightly bigger than the bottom, or vice versa, or the sides, or whatever it is. And so when it comes to the restoration, you want it to be it doesn't have to be restoration, but in any case where you're doing something like this, having a flat image really helps and makes it a lot easier on you. What I did was, you can see in this case, I took the eight images, and then I have the center image right here. It's not very bright. And then this actually isn't too bad. So I could actually take, if I only had the time to take one shot, there's not really any barrel distortion on this at this point. There is a little bit of skewing, but we're not going to talk about, we don't have to address that right now. That was just because of the way that I had it set up. I had to do this real quick. So you can see here, these ones came out much better. They were much brighter. So something that ends up being a little bit difficult is you don't really know 100% whether it's your setup, was your light table, your iPhone or your iPad or whatever it is that you're using, was that not bright enough? Like in this case here, the middle, was that not bright enough, or was the picture itself underexposed? And so that's kind of a difficult thing. It's not so hard to figure out right now because I have so many photos here, so I can tell that this top middle one definitely underexposed. So there's only so much I can do. Now I can, in post, I can go through and edit that and like really bring up the shadows and the exposure. But it's still going to be a very grainy image. But if it's something that we needed to be able to see something, if we needed to say, oh, is that, I don't know, was that Stuart there, that little kid right there? Is that Stuart? And then we could bring it up, but it's going to be super grainy. But I'll show you actually how to kind of resurrect that. This one here is obviously the background was exposed and the silhouette of the image here. I don't know. Is he holding like a chicken on top of his head? I don't know. But we could find out. So there's definitely some really good, well exposed photos. Like this one's really good. This one's really good. This one needs a little bit of brightness, but not a lot because I don't want to remove that depth of the image. And then these ones are really good. This one's a little overexposed. So this is the one that I had open earlier. So what I did, this is the overall image. And then I actually ended up taking too many photos, and I'll tell you why. So I had this one is the overall, and then I zoomed in straight on in. I said, okay, I'm going to go for the middle one. And I started moving. So I don't know why I did this, but I started in the middle and then I started on the bottom left and I started like zigzagging. I don't know. As long as you know which photos you have in the order you went in, normally what I would do is start from top left and work my way, or bottom left and work my way, however you do it. I was in a rush, so I wasn't really doing it that. I made some bad calls, but at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. I got the images. So I did these two, and then I needed to move it down. So in order to get it through my tripod, I had to rotate the iPad. So I started taking the photos and I said, you know what I should do is actually take all the photos all over again. So you can see starting here. So starting at image 5, which you can see down here, down at the bottom. So starting at image 5, we have, that's when I started doing it because I wanted them all to be in the same orientation, just for ease of processing. So we have this one, this one, this one. You can see I took them all. It doesn't matter about where they're sitting on the iPad. Really doesn't matter because you're just trying to get some light behind them. And as long as you have 100% light behind it and not like an edge of the darkness, like if it's too close to that like black part of the iPad, if that's over, you just want to be very careful about doing that. And that it's not like overhanging, which is very easy to miss, especially if you're running fast. So let's see. So what I'm going to do is I already picked these ones, so I'm just going to do that. So let's do a couple of these together because it's an interesting process. The rest of this, once you have it in Lightroom or whatever your software is of choice, once you have it in here, it's just like editing any other photo. So you have, let's see, which one do we want to do? I want to do one of the nice bright ones. Why don't we do, there's something about this one that I really like. This isn't really bright, but that's okay. So actually, why don't we do this too? We'll just batch. Not that guy. One. Oh, I already rotated it. Okay, so I'm just going to deselect all of them just to make sure that I don't have this one because I already rotated this. So I'm going to select all these, shift click, I'm going to transform. Oh, do I have to go into, I don't usually do it in here. Yeah, I think I got to go through the develop tab. Rotate right. Yep, there we go. Okay, I think that did all of them. It did because I had those all selected. So is it this guy here? Is that the one I want to work on? You know what? No. I'm being picky, but there is that one image that I really just kind of, was it that one? No. See it. There it is. Okay. I don't know why. I'm drawn to this one. I think it's because of what the image is saying. I don't know. It's her and the boy. And so assuming it's his mom, and like I like the darkness to this image. There's a little bit of lightness, and she's being kind of pulled away from the background. So what we're going to do here is I'm actually, just so I can see what my original photo looked like, I'm going to duplicate this. Create a virtual copy. And so virtual copy doesn't take up, it's not duplicating your entire photo. It's just making a virtual copy, but it's not taking up any more space on your computer. I mean, however big a virtual copy is, but it's not like if it's a 50 megabyte RAW file, it's not making another 58 megabyte RAW file. So I'm going to take this guy now, and I'm just going to go up here and crop it and bring this guy down. And something like that. I'm going to have to crop it a little bit more. Oh, damn. I actually got that really good. Okay, so let me crop that because I have a little bit over here on the side. Oh, God. Okay, let's do... Oh, you're not going to let me, huh? Okay, that might be good. Actually, I think that's pretty good. Okay, so there's our image. I'm in 200% zoomed in. So this is 100% zoomed in, which is actually really, really good. This is on my EOS R, which is it's a full frame. I think it's a 20 megapixel. I think somewhere around there. It doesn't matter. It's good enough. It's my professional camera. It's the one that I use. And so what you're going to see here is actually, is that my screen? No, it looks like. Oh, it is my screen. I got a little dust on the screen. So, yeah. Okay, come on. Let's do this. Perfect. Okay, so actually this photo looks damn good. You can see over here in the histogram that it's all pretty much in the darks. There's not an awful lot of light. So let's try something real quick here and just go down to this histogram, the tone curve. I'm going to go, yep, got that guy there. I'm just going to remove the gap, which is down over here. So that just basically means pulling in the gap that's on the bottom when there's no information. So in this case, there's no information in the highlights. So you can see here, so everything from where this dark little mountain starts, from there to there, there's nothing there. There's no information. So this is a more accurate representation, but I actually like... No, well, yeah, okay, so I don't necessarily need to make it that bright, but you can see how on the top histogram, now it's moving stuff and it's spreading it across. So watch, if I bring this back down over here, you see this is exactly the same as this is. This one up here on the top gives you some color information. So the reds, the yellows, the greens, the blues, the magentas. And then if I just do this, I think I'm gonna do it like maybe, let's see if I do, maybe that's the right way to go. I mean, this is the accurate, like mathematical way to go, but it's not, I don't know. I feel like it kind of blows her shirt out, but let's see what happens if I bring down the lights a little bit. At this point, it's kind of like a guessing game, educated guesses. Like I know what I'm doing with the tone curve and the with the histogram and, what's a highlight, what's a darks and everything. So there's that educated guessing. But there's a lot of subjectivity to this. So nothing is right, nothing is wrong necessarily. You see there's a lot of grain in here, but was that the slide itself? Was it the image when it was captured on the film? Did that have a lot of grain? Is it because I'm at 200%, so it's twice the size zoomed in? Like there's a lot of different factors at play here. So you just have to get it as good as you can. If you're in Lightroom, one of the things you want to look at is there sharpening being applied? So if I take that away, you can see that it's a much softer image now, which I actually, let's see. I like it. I'm gonna add just a little bit of sharpness. The thing is, I want their faces to be a little bit sharper, and adding that little bit of sharpness in is good to do that, but it also will, if I crank this up, you'll see that the noise gets really sharpened. So you can see now her face just looks kind of like, actually it has like this houndstooth pattern almost to it. But you almost, I've never put sharpening up that high. So I just want her face to be just a little bit more. And then the kid here, and let's see, I don't really want to do an awful lot to that. I'm playing with the highlights a little bit too. You'll see, because her shirt is really bright. It's really kind of overexposed. But what I could do is, because I really liked it the way that it was, I could just also bring, and I did have, there we go. It's funny when you start editing, because when I first saw this, I was like, oh yeah, so good. But now it's overly dark. So I'm gonna do that, and it's just that her shirt's gonna be a little bit overexposed. There's a little bit of graininess here and pixelation, but don't forget that I'm at 200%. So I'm actually gonna leave that as is. I'd still like to pull down some of the highlights. I don't want to pull down the exposure. That eliminates everything that I did in the beginning. I want to pull down the highlights just a little bit because of the shirt and then the kid's face. But if I pull it down too much, it becomes kind of unnatural looking and like overly washed out, especially in the shirt. So anyway, little bit goes a long way. If you ever needed to add a little bit more sharpness, you could add texture this way. But again, if I do too much, then you're going to end up seeing a little bit more of the grain, and you don't want to add, almost depending on your style, what you're trying to do. The texture you don't want to bring up to almost nothing. Do you want to bring up to 100%? I'm curious, actually, if I go over here, remove the sharpening, go up here, maybe just add a little bit of texture for their face. One of the things I could do if I really wanted to get into it and say, oh, I just want their faces in focus, is I could make a mask. But it's not that important. This is an old photo that's being restored, and there's some power to it looking like an old photo. And I find a lot of value in it being looking like an old photo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to leave it just as it is. And then over here, I'm going to make sure nothing else is selected, just this guy. And I am going to label it green. So this is for myself. This is how my workflow. If I need to, if I think something is done and good, I label it green. And so that is 8 on the keyboard for Lightroom. The other one that I use often is 7, or yellow, which you can also do here. You right click on it and then you go over to set color label, red, yellow, green, blue, purple. And yellow if I need to do additional editing. So that's another thing about workflow, which I'll make a video about at some point, because when I go on site, I take hundreds of photos, like 700 photos sometimes. And so I need to really quickly cull images and say, okay, this is a good one. This one good. This is good. This is good. This is good. This is good. This isn't. Or I need to say, oh, this is good, but it needs some editing. So then I'll do like the yellow, and then in the editing that it might need is something in Photoshop. And like, if this needed whatever this little thing is back here, I'm not sure what that is, but assuming that I wanted to pull that out in Photoshop, maybe the spot healing brush tool didn't work well on here on Lightroom, and I needed to pull in Photoshop, I'd label it yellow. And then I do all my yellows at the end. I do all the stuff that needs to get done. That's just a quick like adjustment. So then that way I have all my like 90% of the work done. But again, this isn't about workflow necessarily. So that's how I like to do that. Let's see. Let's just do another a virtual copy. Actually, let's go back to this one real quick so you can see. Here's the. Yeah, it's. Come on. There we go. It just needed to load the smart preview. I did do smart previews. So, whoops. So let's open this up. So 1 of 2. This one. Oh, yeah. So there's the original. Here's the edited. And then there's the pixelation until it loads. There we go. Perfect. Okay. So let's see. Here's this guy. This one is not vertical. So let's do that like that. Bring this guy. This actually is a little bit easier for me to see the edges if I do it one by one versus like how I did it last time. So there we go. Pretty close. Oh, damn close. Oh yeah. Damn good. Okay. So this one, damn, I like this one too. Like whoever this photographer was, they were like, I like how they were capturing things. There is, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it once this goes up to the YouTube algorithm, because it's going to compress the video quite a bit. So I don't know if you'll be able to see these like striations that I have here. It almost looks like, not really bad, but it almost looks like the photographer was shooting through a net. Not enough so that I think that they actually were doing that. I think that it's part of the processing for the slide, or maybe the age of the slide. It just kind of degraded a little bit. But this actually, let's see. This also has, if you look up at the top here, whites, highlights, that tells you what you want to adjust if you're trying to adjust any of these things. So if I wanted to play around with the shadows, then you can see most of the stuff is up in the shadows. It's not even the blacks. But that's not anything we need to get into. Let's remove the sharpening again. And then let's go down and bring this up a little bit. Again, I feel like that's going to be way too bright. Way too bright. It adds like a level of contrast that I just don't like. I like the softer tonality. But what's funny is as soon as I do that, as soon as I bring it back, it looks way too dark. Okay, so let's do that. Let's actually, I wonder if I just brought up, let's go to the tone curve. And what the tone curve does is instead of bringing one point up, it kind of just adjusts it a little bit more subtly, the tone curve, or the curve rather. So I'm adjusting based off of that, but I'm not really putting a point in there. So I actually like that. I actually like the tone curve a little bit better. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of making an S curve, which is what the shape of this is. So if top here is making a little S, which is kind of a traditional thing. You pull down the darks and then you bring up the lights, but you don't always want to do that. But this looks pretty good. Let me actually I just want to try something. What happens if I bring down the whites? If I bring up the whites, way too much. Whoops. So bring down the highlights. I should bring up. Let me bring up. Yeah, I'm gonna bring up the highlights. There we go. Just a smidge. Okay. So that one I'm gonna label as good. Again, we're not looking for perfection here. And then if the client ends up wanting to, we can always go back and adjust them. I always tell my clients that here are the JPEGs. I have the raw files if we need to make adjustments, if you don't like the way that it's cropped. And not just on this, on everything that I do. I always tell them that. So, all right. So we have that one. That's a duplicate. Okay. So let's do kind of a more difficult one so you can see the difference. So like this is a good example. Actually, let's do this one. This one's a good example. Okay. So this one, oh wait, sorry. Yeah, why not? This is on this one. I was looking at the middle one. All right. So we got this guy like that. This is one of those things that I really enjoy doing. It's very powerful to be able to do restoration for people because a lot of times it's, maybe their grandparents or maybe there was a flood and like this happened in Hurricane Katrina. So many people unexpectedly lost so many photos or they had so much water damage or, they were just looking for their family heritage and even new photos. Now they were just waterlogged or moldy and just like damaged. So there's a lot of cool outreach that you can do as a photographer to say, oh yeah, let me scan some of these and let me help you save these photos. And a lot of times, like in this case here, you can't see it. But if you were to if you didn't know how to do any of this, but you knew how to scan it, or you just took your phone, kind of get far away enough to remove some of that barrel distortion that you get, and like hold it nice and flat. You take a photo and try to hold it as steady as you can so that you don't get any like camera shake. You take your photo. And if all you do is on your camera, you crop it in, your built-in editing software, you crop it in, and then you just enhance the brightness, just like you would probably do for Instagram or wherever it is that you post stuff. The fact that you know how to do that stuff is such a... There are people out there that don't know how to do it. The older folks, they don't know how to do it, or they're distraught. And this kind of work has so much meaning to it, and that's why I really like doing it. And I want to bring that into 124. I haven't really figured out how I'm going to do that yet, but so in this case, watch, all I'm going to do is bring this up, just maximize the brightness. Now, obviously this photo is way too grainy at this point, but maybe the fact that maybe this boy here, maybe they passed away. Maybe there was some, he got sick, or maybe there, whatever, so having even this might be such a godsend to the people that, maybe his parents, and they're like, we don't have any photos. This is the only one, but it's so dark. I can't do anything with it. So this by itself, even if you don't have a higher understanding of editing, can be so powerful to help people. But let's say, what are we going to do? So you see this gap way up here. So that's the histogram. We're going to actually pull down the sharpening because we know we don't want that. We'd rather have a clear-ish image that's a little blurry versus sharpening and making it really bad. So let's go over here and let's bring this, because we know all that data is kind of lost. And actually right there, that already that helps out. So I want to, it's going to remove that. I'm actually going to do this. Whoops. Reset. Oh, I didn't want to reset the whole thing. So I'm just going to bring this over just a little bit. I'm going to bring up the exposure because I know that's a big thing. There's also this dust and whatnot, which you could bring in. You know what? Why not? Let's do that. So I'm going to bring down the highlights a little bit because we're shadows. Up the whites a little bit. Even this is looking really good. And actually, let's bring the blacks up a little bit. So this is going to be a little bit desaturated, but again, it's an old photo. So bring up the shadows just a smidge more. Let's just make sure that, all the sharpening is gone. Manual noise reduction, we don't want to do that. So this is one of those photos where we could try using this heal tool. I don't like this one in Lightroom. If I just need to take a little spot out, I'll use this Lightroom one. But let's see, that's not too bad. These are just little spots. One of the things I don't like is that they keep the little healing thing on it, which I appreciate to some degree, but it's frustrating. So there we go. No, go away. Oop. Yeah. Okay. So you could do this manually. And that's usually the way that I do it. There's a couple ways when you bring it into Photoshop. This actually isn't bad. This is doing a pretty good job. Sometimes it'll take areas that don't really make sense and make an image not really like the healing. It may not. Yeah, there we go. That's much better already. So I could go through here and just kind of like do these. But for most of the stuff that I do, it's not just these little dust and scratches. There's actually a way in Photoshop where you can just, you might be able to do it in Lightroom, but honestly, I've never tried it, where you can remove dust and scratches automatically, and it'll scan the stuff and say, oh, that's dust and this is scratch and whatever. And it actually kind of overall softens those areas. But this is actually doing a pretty good job. So what I'm doing here, this is actually picking, it's usually pretty easy if you're just doing one spot, like these little spots here. But let's say that wasn't, if I was zoomed in, that's not really a good example. What if I did like this? Let's see what happens. So it actually picked a good image, a good area. But what if I wanted to adjust it and say, oh, actually pull from here, you can see that bit that I selected is getting adjusted based off of where I'm grabbing from. So you can always adjust that. But I'm actually just going to delete that guy. I do like that animation, the little cloud animation. But let's see. So there you go. I will go through and do this some more, but you guys don't need to be with me while I just click around. So this is one of those examples that I'll hit the 7 or make a yellow. Let's see. Any others? Well, okay, let's just finish off with this one and see if that is indeed a chicken. We're going to go over here like this, bring this guy down. One of the things that I'm going to do actually coming up is create with me sessions, live stream. And D-Will, at the very least, D-Will from Untapped Media is going to join me. And I'm going to share my screen, and that I think really is a chicken. Is that what that is? That is indeed a chicken. So D-Will from Untapped Media is going to be on, and I'm going to share my screen. Maybe we'll be able to share his screen. I don't know if we can both share our screens, and we're just going to kind of like chit chat, maybe talk about what we're doing. But the whole idea is to create together. So I'm going to be doing maybe some Photoshop work. And I have an idea of one that I want to do, but I'll talk about that later this week. And then just if you guys wanted to do it too, then you can join, you can watch us, you can do your own creative stuff, but we'll get to that in a second. So let's go back over here. We're going to bring down the sharpening. You know the drill at this point. Come over here, remove that gap just a little bit. We don't want to go crazy. We don't want to blow out the background. So let's just do that. Let me bring the shadows up. Okay, so let's bring the blacks up. And then let's bring the exposure up. It needs to go up a little higher. There we go. Okay, so let's bring the highlights down. Let's do this. Let's bring that down and completely. Let's just focus on up here, especially because new folks may not feel as comfortable with the histogram. So bring down the highlights, the shadows. Yeah, it's all in the shadows. Yeah, there's very little in the blacks. Okay, so in this case, it would be very difficult to actually rescue. Actually, this area, his face, doesn't have any information. There's no information there. So we won't be able to actually resurrect that. You might be able to, if it was really super important, you might be able to kind of reconstruct it in Photoshop, but it wouldn't really be, it would be your artistic impression of it, like maybe taking his eye from over here and putting it over there. But if you don't have the information to pull from, you just can't pull anything from nothing. So that's one of the reasons why I always shoot in RAW. I'll often shoot in RAW and small JPEGs so that I have like the small thumbnails to work with, but RAW imagery always has way more to pull from. So anyway, so what I would do in this case is I would take and do the same thing that I just did. I would actually maybe even pull down the texture a little bit. So this is a way that you can soften it. So if I bring it down, so texture, clarity, and dehaze pretty much do the same thing, which is why they're They're right here under the presence tab. They don't do the same thing in the same way. They affect the image in different ways. So you see how like this is affecting the really dark darks and this is the really white whites. Then the clarity, you can see kind of, so if I were to bring the clarity way up, okay, you see how this kind of gives it almost like a charcoaly feel to the chicken, or it kind of like it brings up look at the charcoaly feel. Remember what the charcoaly feel looked like versus this. So it's very similar, okay, the texture versus that. So it affects different areas of it. So usually if I do add this stuff, especially birds, things with fur, I'll add a little bit of texture, but not in this case because we're not really focused on that. And this is already really kind of enhanced with bringing those highlights way down and the shadows way up, and adding almost 3 stops of light. So what I'll do is for this client, for this guy, I will I'll go through and I'll take out these little spots, same way that we did on that last one. But that's it. I'm going to keep going with this. If you guys are interested in this kind of stuff, let me know. I'm going to do it anyway. To be honest, I really like doing photo restoration. It has a lot of meaning to it. And, 124 is all about the stories that matter. And I want to kind of help share those stories. And sometimes it's just family stories. It's these things that you, even if it isn't bringing, in an extreme case, like maybe this boy had passed away and his parents were like, oh, we just want, this is the only photo we have of him and we want to remember him, especially with the chicken on his head because that was his favorite chicken or whatever. I don't know. But even if it isn't that, the ability to digitize these printed, in this case, the slides or negatives even, can be super powerful. And just with the archival process, I love the archival process. I love history. We've kind of gone over that. And to me, there's meaning in saving these things. I don't want to do thousands of these this way. And I have several hundred slides for my family stuff, and maybe over the course of years I'll get them all done. I'm not going to do them all this way. I would do it with a scanner like I did, or I might even send them out. So if you guys are interested in doing this create with me that I'm doing with D-Will, the idea is to just get a community of creative people. Maybe you're a writer, or maybe you do photography, or maybe you do pen drawing, or maybe you do like artistry, like paintbrushing, or whatever it is that you do. Maybe you like to build with Legos. It doesn't matter. The idea is getting a group, a community of creative people that just kind of come together, and they have a designated time, just like you would if you were part of a creative group, like maybe a woodworking group. I used to be part of a woodworking group, and we would meet every Tuesday and we'd get together in the same room. We'd carve. I'd be working on my project. Harry would be working on his project. We'd sit and chat and talk and whatever. And like, I might say, oh yeah, hey, look, this is, I'm making a, goat, whatever it is that I was carving at the time. And there's a lot of power in that. And in this virtual world that we live in nowadays, people don't get that so often, and it's harder to find communities like that. So the idea is to do these create with me's every once in a while. I'm going to be live. I'm going to do it regardless. And if you guys want to join, jump on the chat, and then we can chat about, what it is that you're doing. You're not going to be on screen, so there's no pressure, but it's kind of a dedicated time to hang out and work on your creative stuff. Maybe you're a knitter, working with clay, whatever. It's all about creating and just kind of getting together at a designated time. I will announce it. I'll tell you what, I'll make a video that announces it specifically. And if you guys want to join, cool. If not, that's okay. I will include a link down below of this video to that video. I'm pretty sure I can do that. before it goes for like the live event. I will also mention it on my Instagram. I'm semi-active on Instagram, but I will make sure to throw it in there somehow, maybe as a reel or something. But keep an eye out. If you want to be a part of it, cool. Just join. That's all. If you don't, that's okay too. You can watch it afterwards if you're interested at all. If you're not, then ignore it. But and this was fun. I enjoyed this. It's something different. But like I said, on these days of authenticity, I'm trying something very different. And I've gotten some good feedback. Some people have really enjoyed it. And I know that it's not really everybody's cup of tea, but I'm enjoying it. And at the end of the day, my clarity for building my business, these videos have given me some clarity because I don't know how to put it. Like, I feel like the puzzle pieces I'm starting to see the puzzle actually come together. And it's because I think, more dedicated to doing this stuff every single day. And I'm working every single day at stuff. And this kind of gives me a little bit of a respite. Anyway, I'm going on, and you guys don't need to hear me drone on and on. So I will see you tomorrow. And until next time, be good to each other.